What's up, everybody? RealWillCraig back here again today, bringing you the next tutorial in my DJ tutorial series. I am a DJ from Springfield, Illinois. I'm also a producer, mostly a house DJ. I do some hip hop as well. The last tutorial I did was about my basic workflow and stuff like that, and today we're going to do cue pointing. So that's why I have these nice DJ headphones on. These are Pioneer HDJ 2000 Mark IIs. I strongly suggest them if you're looking into getting some really solid DJ headphones. But regardless, let's get into the meat of this video, which is cue pointing. So as you can see right here on my backdrop, I'm on export mode of Rekordbox. I could also make a separate video about Rekordbox and how to sort of navigate the software if that's something you'd be interested in. It's probably a good idea. But regardless, here we are in the export mode of Rekordbox. So if you remember in last week's video, I dragged all these tracks in here. I have since cue pointed all of them, but I sort of wanted to go over how I do that process and why I cue point what I do. And so the first thing I should probably go over is what a cue point is. And so on your controller, you have that cue and that play button. So you have the orange cue button and you have the green play button. And so if you're on a controller, you probably have pads to the side, which are your performance pads, which have your hotkeys on them. On a CDJ, if you're on the older CDJ models, it's going to be, well, they're in the same spot, but there's only 3 on the older CDJ models, and there are, or sometimes there's none. And then on the new CDJ models, you have a total of 8 with 4, and then you can switch it to the next page. But regardless, you're likely going to have those hot cues. And so what they do is they can transport you anywhere in the track. So if I go to the cues right here, if I start playing this is an electro house song. So I'm playing this right now, and if I wanted to, I could skip to the drop, because I have a cue point right there. Or I could skip to the second drop at any time. And when you have a quantize on, which that's what this button over here is quantized, it always snaps to the beat. So if I'm right here and I want to go to this, right to the beat, or if I want to set my cue point, snaps right to the beat there. So that's what the quantize function does. So if you have quantize on, you can do everything perfectly in time. So it's always going to be on that beat. And so people use cue points for a variety of different things. People use them to mark where to transition in and out of a track, or they use them to be able to bounce to different things. So this is where the vocal in this track starts. So if I wanted to snap right to the vocal, I'd be able to do that just by hitting that button. And so the best advice I can give you on to where to put your cue points in your tracks is something that makes sense to you. So for me, I have my A cue point is always 16 bars from the start of the song, so after the intro is over. And this is where it gets kind of confusing, because since I do like pop and hip hop as well, if it's below 110 BPM, I usually do 8 bars between my intro and my start, because that's usually the general phrasing of that kind of hip hop and pop music. But if I'm doing anything above that, even if the phrasing is not like that, even if it is 16 bar phrasing, or even if it is 8 bar phrasing, I'll still do 16, but I will have a auto loop that I do. And so I'll show you how to do that as well within the Rekordbox software. But regardless, I always do 16 on anything that's above 110. So this is electro house, you can see over here in the genre, and that's what I do. I order it by genre because the different genres get different treatment. And so for me anyway, do it however you want, but I started downloading pretty much every electronic song that I could find. And so I download most stuff my pool has, and so because I want to have a variety of electronic music. And so that's sort of the way that I go about it, but you can do it however you want to. So like I said, I do the 16 bars, and so you can usually see the groupings as well if you're on the fly and you don't have your cue point set, but that's why we're setting them, right? And so after that, I put my B cue point on the vocal. So that does one of 2 things. It lets me to get to that vocal very quickly, and then it also tells me if the song has a vocal. So if it's an instrumental track that doesn't have a vocal at all, I'll know that without having to mark it anywhere. I just see that I don't have that vocal cue point. And then so we have this cue point right here, which is 16 bars from the end of the first drop. And so if I wanted to, I can mix out of that. I don't really try to do that very much because it doesn't work a lot of the times unless I'm trying to go from a drop to another drop or something like that if it's really high in energy. But you don't really want your like high intensity pumping synths and everything else to go against the melody of an introduction like that. So, and you're swapping bass frequencies and melodies and stuff, and it just doesn't usually sound good. But I still leave that in there, so I also know where part of the drop is, so I could do a drop mix of some kind, so I can switch the drops out. This drop is 24 bars long, or yeah, 24 bars long, so it's a little bit different. So why I have, well, I'll talk about the rest of my cue points. And then I always have this cue point as my last mix out point. And so this starts the mix out process. And so you also see these arrows. And so something that might be, I don't think they have this on Serato. I think it's a record box only thing, but you have what's called memory cue points. And so since your CDJs only have, the older ones only had 3, they give you memory points. And so you use your cue points for being able to jump different places in the track. And so if I was on an actual CDJ range that was a 2000 series, that wasn't a Nexus 2, so just 2000 Nexus, I'd only have 3 cue points. So I'd only have A, B, and E. And so that wouldn't be that great because I wouldn't be able to jump to the end. Because something that I frequently do, and I use the memory cues for that, is I want to only play one drop of the track, but I want to have a good set of outro beats. And so one way that you do that is I can just have this building up right here. And then just very seamless hop to the end of the track. And then these mark my, so this is 16 bars between this and that. So that's where I cut it, is right there. And then I also have this pink one here, different color, so it signifies a different mix out point. And so that's 16 bars from here. And then I know that from the end of the track, I can just start right here, and that's going to be 16 bars from that point right there. And so that's sort of the way that I do it, is that I'll use a red memory point for the initial intro red cue, and then I'll use the yellow one for jumping to the end of the track unless if it's a 16-bar drop, that I won't do that. I'll just know I can jump from the green, and then I use this for the outro. And so you can also write in the comments. And so I said this is a full break because it kind of just, at the end of it, it has like a whoosh. And so I sort of refer to that as a full break. And so I know that if I'm playing something like this, where it does the same sort of thing, I can transition between those really quickly and no one really knows. It's kind of a seamless transition. And so that's the way I do it for kind of the electro, and the future house is the same sort of way. As you can see, it's all set up in the same sort of fashion. And I try to make, like I said, I try to make it as easy as possible. A lot of people will say that this is overkill, having all the stop points and everything else in here, or they'd even say it's cheap or cheating or something like that. But I like to have it to where I don't really have to think when I'm behind the decks. I want to think about stuff that's important, like song selection, and making sure that I'm keeping the vibe of the night the way that I want it to be. And so in order to do that, I sacrifice on some of the technique, I guess, in having it clearly marked out where I want to exit the song. I don't really think that's cheating. And I mean, I don't use sync. I don't play with sync on at all. I use, I use the platters to beat match and stuff. So, I mean, it is what it is. And I use the pitch faders to line up my tempos. So it is what it is. But anyway, if it's a situation like this, so this is 8 bars, gives me to this point right here. So it's not a full 16-bar phrase. So what I'll do is, like, you can already see it here, but I'll erase it and I'll show you what I do. You have this button over here on your export mode, and so this is your loop length. And so that would be a 2-beat, 4-beat, 8-beat, and 16-beat. You can even do more if you really want to. But so you have a 16-beat loop here. And then so if I don't have that on, if I just have this on and then I put that on, it's not really going to do anything. But if you put the loop on first and then you hit your cue point, then you have a loop point. And so when this comes up on your controller or on a CDJ, you'll have that memory loop that's already there. And so, and since quantize is on, it's quantized to the beat. So you can start this up at the outro and you can still mix it in 16 bars just like you want to do. And so that's another good example of something that you would use you would use that for. You can call a memory loop anywhere. Some people will put one down here. So if they get to the end here and they don't have another song yet, you could toss that on and you know, hit that, and then you have a nice little memory loop that auto cues at the end. So so you'll be able to mix out when you want to mix out. And so that's just something that you can do. As far as my other types of music, so for like these different genres right here. So again, this is 100 BPM, so it's only going to be 8. And so that's how, and then these memory points right here, the same thing. So this is 8 bars between that, which is 8 bars between that. And so again, that's the basic way that I do it. It's pretty simple, but it's also pretty helpful. And so I guess something that I could go over, we'll do a couple of them. I don't have all my hip hop ones done, and those are a little bit different because the phrasing's not as obvious, but something that we should probably talk about that I probably could have made an entire video about in and of itself is phrasing. And so you need to know phrasing to be able to do cue points. And so let's just find an easy electro house song because they're relatively easy to see the phrasing, and then we'll delete the cue points. I won't delete my memory points. It's not that big of a deal. But so what I'll do is on record box, you can have it set to where your keyboard corresponds to the to a button. So I'll set my my 1 as A, so I'll hit that down. That's at the beginning. But first, I'll make sure that that's 16 bars. And so each time I hit to the side, it's 8. But just to be sure, we'll count it out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And so you might be wondering why that's important. And that's important because usually musical songs are broken down into phrases. The way that I like to explain phrasing is that you have beats of a song, and so you have your beats right here. These are your down beats. This is where the kick in house music. This is where your kick drum hits. And so you have 4 beats in house music, 4 down beats that make up a single bar. And then so it would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. And so usually in music, per music theory, and you know this anyway just by listening to music, you just don't really realize it. But you know how you can kind of feel like the song should switch or the song should end or something else should be added to the song. And so that's the musical phrasing that you're used to. And so it's usually 4, 8, 16, 32, and 62 bars. And so multiply that by 4 to get your beat number. And so so again, if you have 8 bars, it'd be 40 or 32 beats. So anyway, and people they interchange those. They might say they mix out at 32 or 64 beats, so they might say 8 or 16 bars. And so regardless, it's the same thing. But if we listen to this, you can count it. And so you can go 1, 2, 3, 1, 1, 2, 3, 2, 1, 2, 3, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 1, 1, 2, 3, 2, 1, 2, 3, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. And so if you notice, when we hit that 4 right here, it was different. And so left off a percussive element right there. And so again, it's sort of that every four you're going to have changes, and then every 8 you're going to have slightly major changes, and then those major changes are going to kind of fit together for the 16. And so the way that I like to explain it is that your beats are like letters, your bars are like words, your phrases are your groups of bars are like sentences, and then your phrases are, and so you have like an 8-bar phrase or a 16-bar phrase. Those are your bars that come together to form a whole entire unit. Those are going to be your paragraphs, and then together, your whole essay, that's a song. And so that's the way I like to explain it. And so with that phrasing, you can sort of figure out where to go because, again, it could be slightly different in some types of music, but generally it's going to be in house music, you're going to have 8 to 16 bar phrases. And so always try to look for, they say on the 1, look for it when it switches. So that's your 1 right there. And so again, right here, since this is 16 bars from our mix out point, our possible mix out point, we're going to put a cue point there. And then again, down here, we can go to the end of the song. We can go over 1. Okay, I have a mark there. Over again, I have a mark there. Okay, I have a mark there. We'll make that the same one that's 16 bars away, so it's pink, just like the other pink one. And then we'll put our first mix out point here, so that 16 bars from here, we could technically mix out of that because you're mixing it on phrase. And so that might be a pretty high energy mix out. So you might not want to do that, but it's available for you to do. Or we can jump, so we can go from, again, you're jumping on phrase. And so essentially that's your that's how you do cue points, and that's how you do phrasing. And so we'll hop to some of my hip hop stuff because I have some stuff that hasn't been cued yet. Dance pop is something that's relatively similar to normal like hip hop or EDM phrasing. And so we have that, and then you can see just by the grouping, this is most likely, this is most likely going to work out just fine right here. And then so we'll make sure this, yep, that's fine too. So we'll make this a second mix out point. And then we'll do 1 right here as well. And then I'll just hop over to the memory section. So over here in this little side panel, you have all your hotkeys if you want to write about them. I used to write in every single one of those, but it's too much. It takes too long and it's kind of unnecessary. And then so you can come over here, and then so our first memory cue is green. We have a pink one, and a yellow one. And there you go. The song's cue pointed. And so when you bring this up in a mix, you'll know exactly where you can mix in and exactly where you can mix out. You can also just kind of feel it. I have so many cue points on my hip hop stuff that it's not even funny, because since the beat's relatively constant, you can kind of get in and get out whenever you want to. But ultimately, what it comes down to is that you can kind of feel the one coming. So you're like, so like there's your one right there, and so you can kind of feel, you can see it on this song, but you can kind of feel it coming. And so when you feel it coming, that's when you can start mixing out. And the good thing about this, some of these genres, is that you can use a lot of effects. And so with hip hop, what I like to do a lot of the time is, and this is a tip for all of you as well, go in my preferences, and I don't have my controller plugged in right now, but you go to your controller settings, change your EQ to isolation. And so you can cut the low frequencies, you can cut the bass out, and it doesn't take too much of the mid-range, which is where your vocals sit, away. And so when you do that, you can kind of just echo out of that with a low cut echo, so it's not too jarring. It's not like echoing a beat out, echoing a vocal, some elements right there. The phrasing is important, but when you do that, as long as you're close to a 1, it doesn't have to necessarily be on the chorus, if that makes sense. But anyway, I'll probably go ahead and end it here. This was, I think, relatively helpful. It's always helpful for me to go through this kind of stuff and sort of learn. And if you have any questions about the cue points or the phrasing or anything else, feel free to let me know. I definitely could have forgotten something. I can always go over, I will eventually make videos on mixing techniques, and so how you want to mix it in out of a song, and how to do those different mixing techniques while using your cue points, while using your phrasing, and everything else. And so tune in next week, same time, Friday nights, probably when I'll release the video, and I will be going over playlisting. And so that's the other big thing I have yet to do this week. And so I'll probably record that video in the next couple of days, and I'll just do it with these tracks that I currently have right now, and I'll show you the different ways that I playlist. So I playlist my EDM, and I playlist my hip-hop differently, and you can kind of see just from the side here that I do that. But I do it differently, and I'll let you know how I do that, why I do it that way, and sort of give you an idea of, based on that playlisting, how you can build a set from there. And so how you can go from start to finish, play for an hour, and get people to, kind of go on a journey with you. So anyway, that'll be next time. Thank you for hanging out with me. As always, you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at RealWillCraig. Pretty much everything is RealWillCraig. So Mixcloud, Hearthis.at, Twitch.tv, where I will do some streaming this week for sure, all /RealWillCraig. So you can find me on there if you want to. And if not, I will see you next week. Later.